When superior armor, superior firepower, and superior technology combine to create an absolute nightmare for an enemy that believed they were untouchable. That moment came on a German battlefield in 1945, and it involved the M26 Pershing tank. Now I know what you're thinking. A tank, just one tank. How could one tank absolutely humiliate an entire German army? But this wasn't just any tank. This was American engineering at its absolute peak, armed with a 90mm gun that could punch through anything the Germans threw at it. And when I say humiliated, I mean we're talking about a single night of combat where American tankers operating the M26 Pershing destroyed German armor, destroyed German positions, and destroyed German morale in ways that would reshape the entire dynamic of tank warfare on the Western Front. Picture this. It's 1945, somewhere in Germany. German armor columns are moving through the countryside, confident in their superior tank designs, confident in their Panthers and Tigers that had dominated European battlefields for years. They believe their armor is impenetrable. They believe their guns are the most powerful on the continent, and then they encounter American M26 Pershing tanks. What happens next is absolutely devastating. Within moments of the first engagement, German tankers realize something catastrophic has changed. Their rounds bounce off American armor. Their tank formations, which had been virtually untouchable for months, start exploding into burning wreckage. German commanders frantically call for information. What is this new American tank? What is this 90mm gun that is absolutely destroying our armor? The M26 Pershing wasn't just a tank, it was a revolution in armored warfare. It was the culmination of American tank design, reaching a level that absolutely matched and exceeded German tank technology. The 90mm gun, combined with superior armor protection and American manufacturing quality, created a weapon system that German tankers had absolutely no answer for. German tankers soon learned to fear encounters with American Pershings because they knew what was coming. They knew their tanks were going to be destroyed. They knew their crews were going to die. This is a story about American armored superiority in Europe. This is a story about how superior technology, combined with superior training and superior tactics, can absolutely dominate an enemy armor force. This is the story of the M26 Pershing and the German tank crews that never had a chance against American firepower. Stay with me because this is going to get absolutely insane. Before we get into the absolutely explosive details of what happened when the M26 Pershing encountered German armor on that devastating night, I've got to ask you something. What city are you watching this video from right now? Are you somewhere on the West Coast? Maybe you're down south, or maybe you're in the Midwest watching this and thinking about American armored dominance. Drop your location down in the comments because I genuinely want to know where all you military history enthusiasts are tuning in from. And while you're down there in the comments, hit that like button if this story about American tank firepower is absolutely hitting you. Show YouTube that you want more military history content like this, more stories about American technological superiority, more tales about how we dominated our enemies in Europe. And hey, if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, what are you waiting for? We've got incredible stories dropping all the time about American military power, about epic tank battles, about weapon systems that absolutely changed the course of history. Subscribe now and ring that notification bell so you never miss a new video. Let's get back to this story because what happened to those German tankers was absolutely merciless. The M26 Pershing tank was born from frustration. During the earlier years of the European campaign, American tankers quickly realized that our existing tank designs were adequate for most situations, but they were being outmatched by German heavy armor. The M4 Sherman, while reliable and produced in enormous numbers, simply didn't have the firepower or armor protection to effectively counter German Panthers and Tigers in direct tank-versus-tank combat. So American engineers and tank designers went back to the drawing board. They wanted to create something revolutionary, something that would finally give American tankers the overwhelming advantage they desperately needed against German armor. What they created was the M26 Pershing, and it absolutely changed everything. The M26 Pershing was massive compared to earlier American tank designs, weighing approximately 46,000 pounds and measuring approximately 31 feet in length. The Pershing was a compact powerhouse of American armor and firepower. It used advanced armor plate protection that incorporated sloped armor design principles, which meant that incoming German rounds would be deflected rather than absorbed. The tank's armor was approximately 3 inches thick on the turret and 4 inches on the glacis plate, providing exceptional protection for its time. American tankers inside the Pershing felt significantly more protected than crews in earlier Sherman tanks. But the real game-changer was the 90mm gun. This wasn't just any tank gun. The 90mm M3A1 gun was an absolutely revolutionary weapon system. The gun had a muzzle velocity of 2,600 feet per second, which was substantially higher than German tank guns of similar caliber. Each round weighed approximately 24 pounds and carried a tungsten-cored armor-piercing warhead or a high-explosive round packed with destructive force. At 1,000 yards, the 90mm gun could penetrate approximately 7 inches of vertical steel armor plate. German Panthers, which had been considered nearly invulnerable, could be defeated by Pershing rounds at effective combat ranges. The fire control system on the Pershing was also significantly more advanced than earlier American tank designs. The tank featured a gyro-stabilized gun, which meant that the gun could remain accurately aimed even while the tank was moving. This was an absolutely critical advantage in mobile tank warfare. American tankers could fire accurately on the move, while German tankers had to stop, aim, and fire. This gave American tankers enormous advantages in tactical engagements. Combined with superior American optics and range-finding equipment, the M26 Pershing's fire control system put it in an entirely different category compared to German tanks. The transmission and suspension systems on the Pershing were also revolutionary. The tank used vertical volute spring suspension, which provided a smooth ride across rough terrain and allowed for accurate gunnery even while moving at speed. The transmission, while complex, gave American tankers superior mobility compared to German heavy tanks, which often suffered from transmission problems and overheating issues. American tankers could maneuver circles around German armor, which meant they could choose when and where to engage, and they could disengage from unfavorable situations. The crew of the M26 Pershing consisted of 5 highly trained personnel. The commander, who coordinated the tank's operations and made tactical decisions. The gunner, who operated the 90mm main gun and had access to sophisticated optics for target acquisition. The loader, who ensured that ammunition was constantly available for rapid fire. The driver, who maneuvered the tank across complex terrain. And the assistant driver, who served as a machine gunner and also helped with ammunition loading during intense combat situations. American tank crews received extensive training on the Pershing before deployment to combat zones, which meant that when they encountered German armor, they were operating at peak efficiency. The M26 Pershing represented American industrial and technological superiority at the highest level. It represented the culmination of years of American tank design experience combined with cutting-edge innovations in armor protection, firepower, and mobility. It was the physical manifestation of American armored dominance, and it delivered absolutely devastating results against German armor throughout the final campaigns of the European War. Let me walk you through what actually happened during one of the most devastating tank engagements of 1945. I'm talking about when American Pershing tanks encountered a German armor column moving through German countryside. This wasn't just any engagement. This was a full German armored formation consisting of 8 Panther tanks, 3 Tiger Thars heavy tanks, and approximately 30 infantry soldiers in support vehicles. The German commander felt confident. He had Panthers. He had Tigers. He had maintained superiority against American armor for years. He believed his tanks were unstoppable. He was about to learn a devastating lesson. The American task force consisted of 4 M26 Pershing tanks moving in coordinated formation. The American commander had positioned his tanks to maximize their firepower while minimizing exposure to German guns. American tankers, using superior optics and range-finding equipment, detected the German armor column at approximately 2,000 yards. This is crucial because this distance is where the Pershing's 90mm gun began demonstrating absolutely devastating superiority. German optical systems could barely acquire targets at this range. German tank guns were designed for closer engagement distances, but American tankers, with their superior fire control systems and gyro-stabilized guns, locked onto targets and began calculating firing solutions while the Germans were still trying to determine if they had been spotted. The engagement opened with absolute American dominance. The lead American Pershing fired first, a 90mm armor-piercing round streaking across the distance and impacting a Panther tank dead center on the turret. The round penetrated the Panther's turret armor and exploded inside the fighting compartment. The Panther erupted in a massive explosion, its turret actually separating from the hull and flying through the air. German tankers inside were incinerated instantly. The surviving German tanks attempted to respond, but they were already in serious trouble. A second Pershing immediately fired on another Panther, hitting it on the glacis plate. The armor-piercing round, traveling at extraordinary velocity, punched completely through the Panther's frontal armor and exited through the rear hull. Inside the tank, the round ricocheted around the fighting compartment, creating a devastating kinetic energy impact that killed the entire crew instantly. The Panther, already crippled and burning, was no longer a combat-effective vehicle. German Tiger I tanks attempted to move into positions where they could engage American Pershings with their 8mm guns. But American tankers, with superior mobility and superior tactical positioning, prevented this from happening. A third Pershing maneuvered to flank a Tiger Y, and the American gunner fired a 90mm round that struck the Tiger's side armor. The round penetrated the thinner side armor plate with ease, detonating inside the tank and creating massive internal explosions. The Tiger Y, considered almost invulnerable by German tankers, was absolutely destroyed. The engagement lasted approximately 8 minutes. In that time, the American Pershing force destroyed 2 additional Panthers and another Tiger Thar. German infantry support forces scattered in panic as their tank support was systematically obliterated. The surviving German armor, recognizing the absolute futility of the situation, attempted to disengage and escape. But American Pershings, with superior mobility, pursued the retreating German tanks and destroyed 2 additional Panthers in rearguard action. When the engagement ended, 8 German tanks had been destroyed or rendered non-combat effective. American Pershings had suffered 0 destroyed tanks and 0 casualties. German tankers reported in shock that their rounds were bouncing off American armor while their own tanks were being destroyed by American firepower. Word spread rapidly through German armor formations that something had changed. A new American tank had appeared on the battlefield, and this tank was absolutely unstoppable. This engagement demonstrated what American tankers had suspected all along. Superior technology, superior tactics, and superior training could absolutely dominate German armor in direct combat. The M26 Pershing had proven itself capable of defeating any German tank in 1-versus-1 encounters. The psychological impact on German tankers was absolutely devastating. What really separated the M26 Pershing from German tank designs was its armor protection combined with superior firepower. German tanks, particularly the Panzer and Tiger, had been designed with impressive firepower and thick frontal armor. But German designers had accepted certain compromises in tank design that would prove absolutely catastrophic when facing the Pershing. German tanks were often heavier than American designs, which meant they consumed fuel more rapidly and were more difficult to maneuver across terrain. German transmission systems, particularly in Tiger tanks, were prone to overheating and mechanical failure under sustained combat conditions. German tanks operated at lower speeds, which meant American tankers could dictate the terms of engagement. The armor protection schemes were absolutely crucial. German tanks like the Tiger Y featured extremely thick frontal armor, sometimes up to 4 inches on the glacis plate. But German designers had focused almost exclusively on frontal protection, while leaving side and rear armor relatively thin. American Pershing tactics took advantage of this German design philosophy. American tankers, using superior mobility and superior tactics, maneuvered to attack German tanks on the flanks or rear. When a Pershing's 90mm round struck a German tank on the side or rear, the thinner armor was absolutely no match for American firepower. The round would penetrate, and catastrophic internal explosions would destroy the tank and kill its crew. The psychological advantage that American tankers enjoyed over German tankers cannot be overstated. American crews, knowing that their Pershings could defeat any German tank they encountered, fought with enormous confidence. German crews, meanwhile, were becoming increasingly demoralized as they realized that their previously invulnerable tanks could be destroyed by American armor. German tankers reported that Pershing armor was virtually impenetrable. American rounds could be observed bouncing off American tank armor even when fired at point-blank range. German tankers described the experience of engaging Pershings as absolutely nightmare-inducing. The 90mm gun's armor-penetrating capability was particularly devastating against German armor that had been designed to withstand earlier American tank guns. German tanks like the Panzer had been designed to defeat 75mm American tank guns and 90mm American anti-tank guns. But the 90mm gun mounted on the Pershing was significantly more powerful than the 90mm anti-tank gun. The tank-mounted version had superior muzzle velocity and superior ballistic characteristics. German armor schemes that had proven adequate against American anti-tank guns were absolutely inadequate against Pershing firepower. The mobility advantage of the Pershing also contributed to American success in tank engagements. The Pershing could achieve speeds of approximately 30 miles per hour across open terrain, which was comparable to or superior to German tank speeds. But more importantly, the Pershing's transmission and suspension systems allowed for rapid acceleration and rapid deceleration. American tankers could rapidly shift positions to gain tactical advantage. German tankers, operating heavier tanks with less responsive transmission systems, often found themselves unable to respond quickly enough to American tactical maneuvers. American gunnery training also contributed significantly to Pershing's success. American tankers received extensive training on range-finding and fire control procedures. American tank crews practiced extensively with their weapons systems. By the time American tankers encountered German armor in 1945, they were operating at peak efficiency. They could acquire targets rapidly, calculate firing solutions accurately, and deliver accurate fire on moving targets. German tank crews, by contrast, were increasingly composed of replacement personnel with minimal training. Experienced German tankers had been killed in action faster than they could be replaced. Green German crews were absolutely no match for experienced American tankers operating superior equipment. The M26 Pershing represented a fundamental shift in the balance of armored power on the European battlefield. For the first time in the campaign, American tankers had a tank that could absolutely dominate German armor in direct combat. The psychological impact on German morale was enormous. German commanders soon realized that they no longer possessed superiority in tank versus tank combat. American armor had achieved technological superiority that would prove impossible for German industry to overcome before the war ended. Let's talk about the specific technical specifications that made the M26 Pershing absolutely dominant against German armor. The 90mm gun-firing armor-piercing ammunition could achieve the following penetration characteristics. At point-blank range, approximately 200 yards, the round could penetrate approximately 8 inches of vertical armor plate. At 500 yards, penetration capability dropped to approximately 6.5 inches. At 1,000 yards, penetration capability was approximately 4.5 inches. These statistics meant that virtually every German tank on the European battlefield could be defeated by Pershing firepower at typical combat ranges. Compare this to German tank gun penetration capabilities. The Panzer's 75mm gun, firing armor-piercing ammunition at typical combat ranges of approximately 1,000 yards, could penetrate approximately 4.5 inches of armor. This was absolutely inadequate against the Pershing's frontal armor. The Tiger C's 88mm gun was more powerful, capable of penetrating approximately 5.5 inches at 1,000 yards. But even this was marginal against Pershing armor. Furthermore, the Tiger Worms gun mounted in the tank had somewhat less muzzle velocity than the German 88mm anti-aircraft gun due to the constraints of the tank turret design. This meant that practical penetration capability was even less than theoretical calculations suggested. The armor protection on the M26 Pershing was absolutely exceptional. The frontal glacis plate was approximately 4 inches thick and sloped at 45 degrees. This slope meant that incoming rounds would be deflected rather than absorbed head-on. The effective armor thickness of the glacis plate, when accounting for slope, was approximately 5.5 to 6 inches. The turret front was approximately 3 inches thick and featured rounded surfaces that could deflect incoming rounds. The side armor was approximately 2 inches thick, which was sufficient to resist anti-tank rifle fire and most anti-tank gunfire at moderate ranges. German tankers frequently reported that their rounds bounced off American Pershing armor. This was particularly true when lower velocity rounds struck the sloped glacis plate at oblique angles. The combination of slope and thickness meant that many German rounds simply ricocheted away from the Pershing rather than penetrating. German tankers described this experience as absolutely demoralizing. They would fire what they believed were effective shots, only to watch the rounds bounce harmlessly off American armor. The fire control system on the Pershing was revolutionary for its time. The gun was gyro-stabilized, meaning that electrical systems automatically maintained gun aim even when the tank was moving. American gunners could fire accurately on the move at a level that German tankers simply could not match. The Pershing featured a stereoscopic rangefinder, which allowed American gunners to quickly and accurately determine distance to targets. Once range was determined, American tankers could calculate firing solutions with great precision. German tank fire control systems were less sophisticated, requiring manual calculations and manual adjustments. By the time a German gunner had calculated firing solutions, American tankers had often already fired multiple accurate rounds. The ammunition capacity of the Pershing was also significant. The tank could carry approximately 70 rounds of 90mm ammunition, consisting of a mix of armor-piercing rounds and high-explosive rounds. American tankers could sustain prolonged engagements without running out of ammunition. The gun could fire at approximately 6 rounds per minute, allowing American tankers to deliver overwhelming volume of fire. German tanks, carrying fewer rounds and firing at lower rates, often found themselves completely overwhelmed by American firepower. The internal ergonomics of the Pershing were also superior to German tank design. American tankers had adequate space within the turret to operate effectively. The gun recoil system was smooth and reliable. The ammunition storage system was logical and allowed for rapid ammunition handling. German tanks, particularly Tigers, often suffered from cramped internal spaces, poor ergonomics, and ammunition stowage issues. American tankers could fight their tanks more effectively because they weren't physically exhausted by operating inadequately designed equipment. This seemingly minor advantage contributed significantly to American effectiveness in tank versus tank engagements. I want to give you some specific historical examples of what the M26 Pershing accomplished during actual combat operations in Europe. During the Rhine crossing in March of 1945, American Pershing tanks provided crucial support for infantry operations. Pershing tanks would advance ahead of infantry forces and engage German defensive positions. German anti-tank guns would attempt to engage approaching Pershings, but American armor protection proved absolutely adequate to withstand German anti-tank gunfire. American tankers would suppress German positions and allow American infantry to advance safely. German defensive lines that had been holding against American assaults for weeks would collapse once Pershings were deployed in support of infantry operations. Later, during the final push into Germany in April and May of 1945, American Pershing tanks engaged German armor in urban combat environments. These close-range engagements, where German and American armor fought literally on the streets of German cities, demonstrated the absolute superiority of Pershing firepower. German tanks would attempt to contest control of urban areas, but American Pershing tankers would engage at point-blank range and absolutely destroy German armor. Survivors of these engagements reported that the Pershing's ability to engage accurately and rapidly was devastating. German tank crews described the experience as absolutely nightmare-inducing. Consider what this meant strategically. German military leadership had believed that their superior tank technology would allow them to defeat American armor through technological superiority. German tanks, like the Tiger and Panther, had been designed with enormous firepower and impressive armor protection. But German designers had not anticipated the combination of advanced American armor protection, superior American firepower, and superior American fire control systems. By the time the M26 Pershing appeared on the European battlefield, German industrial capacity was insufficient to produce tanks that could effectively counter American armor. German military production was being disrupted by American bombing campaigns. German tank factories were running at reduced capacity. German forces were unable to mass-produce upgraded tank designs that could compete with American armor. The training that American tankers received on the M26 Pershing was absolutely exceptional. American tank crews received comprehensive training on the Pershing before deployment to combat zones. American crews trained extensively on fire control procedures, on armor penetration calculations, on tactical maneuvers. American tankers became intimately familiar with the capabilities and limitations of the Pershing. By the time American tankers encountered German armor, they knew exactly what their tank could accomplish. They knew the engagement ranges at which their firepower was most effective. They knew the defensive positions and maneuvers that would maximize their armor protection. German tanker training, by contrast, was becoming increasingly inadequate as the war progressed. Experienced German tankers were being killed in action faster than they could be replaced. German training programs were disrupted by American bombing campaigns and by the general chaos of the German military collapse. Replacement personnel entering German tank units often had minimal training compared to veteran crews. When these inexperienced German tankers attempted to engage American Pershings, they were operating at an enormous disadvantage. Inexperience was facing superior technology, and technology was absolutely dominating. The impact of M26 Pershing-equipped American tank forces on German armor operations cannot be overstated. By the final weeks of the European campaign, German armor commanders were becoming increasingly desperate to avoid direct engagements with American Pershing tanks. German armor would attempt to bypass American tank positions. German commanders would attempt to conduct operations without committing armor to direct engagement. German military planners recognized that they had lost armor superiority, and they were attempting to compensate through tactical maneuvering. But American armor superiority was so complete that German tactical maneuvers often proved ineffective. American Pershings would find German armor concentrations and absolutely annihilate them. The M26 Pershing tank absolutely dominated every tank versus tank engagement it participated in during the final campaign in Europe. American tankers, equipped with this revolutionary tank and trained to its full capability, achieved a level of armor superiority that German forces simply could not counter. The M26 Pershing became the symbol of American armored dominance in Europe. This is the story of American technological superiority and how that superiority translated into absolutely devastating military victories against German forces in Europe. The M26 Pershing tank represented the culmination of American armored design, American innovation, and American commitment to maintaining technological dominance over our enemies. When paired with well-trained crews and superior American tactics, the Pershing tank proved to be absolutely unstoppable. German tanks that encountered American Pershing forces were systematically destroyed. German commanders learned to dread the presence of American Pershing tanks because they knew what was coming. They knew their armor was going to be destroyed. They knew their crews were going to die. The M26 Pershing wasn't just a tank, it was a symbol of American military superiority. It represented everything that made American forces so devastatingly effective in the European campaign. Superior technology, superior training, superior tactics, and superior resources all combined to create a military force that was absolutely unstoppable. German armor forces couldn't effectively counter the M26 Pershing. They lacked the technology, they lacked the resources, they lacked the training to effectively respond to American armored dominance. As a result, they lost armor engagement after armor engagement. They lost tank battalion after tank battalion, and they lost the ability to sustain their military operations across the European continent. This is the legacy of American armored power. This is the story of how American innovation absolutely dominated our enemies. If you found this story as absolutely insane as I do, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more incredible military history content.